Congress admits UFOs not man-made, says threats increasing exponentially. The new budget for America's intelligence services directs the Pentagon to focus its UFO investigation on those objects that it can't identify. So let's read a little bit of this. After years of revelations about strange lights in the sky, firsthand reports from Navy pilots about UFOs, and governmental investigations, Congress seems to have admitted something startling in print. It doesn't believe all UFOs are, quote unquote, man made. Buried deep in a report that's an addendum to Intelligence Authorization Act for fiscal year 2023, a budget that governs America's clandestine services, Congress made two startling claims. The first is that cross-domain transmedium threats to the United States national security are expanding exponentially. So that's a pretty interesting, little tidbit buried deep in this, budget report. The second is that it wants to distinguish between UFOs that are not human in origin and that are human in origin and those that are not. Temporary, non-attributed objects, or those that are positively identified as man-made after analysis, will be passed to appropriate offices and should not be considered under the definition as unidentified aerospace undersea phenomena, the document states. The admission is stunning, chiefly because as more information about the U.S. government study of UFOs has become public, many politicians have stopped just short of claiming the unidentified objects were extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional in origin. The standard line is typically that if UFOs exist, they are likely advanced, although human-made vehicles. Obama refused to confirm the existence of aliens, but did say that people have been seeing a lot of strange stuff in the sky lately when asked directly on The Late Show with Corden. But now Congress seems to want to specifically distinguish between objects that are man-made and those that are not. So we can take a little bit more of this article in a second. But I do think that's an important point. A lot of the skeptics of UFOs will always say, well, yes, they are technically unidentified flying objects, but let's be honest, these are probably vehicles that are still man-made, whether it's by our own military or another, foreign superpowers military. We just aren't privy to this technology yet. That's why it seems unexplainable. But again, as this article states, it seems like this admission kind of dispels that no, they're actually making differentiations between vehicles that are man-made and those that are not, which obviously opens up a whole nother can of worms entirely. What was your reaction to this, Tyrel?
It was a fascinating read. My initial reaction whenever I see something like this is, okay, they're using it as part of financing and budgeting, right? So they're using it to pump more money into the intelligence community. Since the rise of Space Force, it's funny when you look at like the amount of UFOs, they might be real, they might not be real, coming from official sources right after they designed a brand new wing of the Pentagon called Space Force. The cynical part of me says this is all a lot of smoke and mirrors just to be able to justify massive amounts of spending. Because, all right, let's think about it like this. If they're man-made, right, and we've seen these things, and I've heard like Neil deGrasse Tyson kind of say, well, when he was looking at like the videos and things like that from the Nimitz and the stuff that happened in the Pacific Ocean, the Tic Tac videos and stuff like that. I mean, and he brought up a really good, interesting scientific point in just saying, well, if you're going to look at this scientifically, the first thing you have to do is check the instruments that are recording this. Yes, it might seem weird, but you could also have an instrument that's being glitchy, and not a lot of times you can't trust human observation because, look, we're people, we're not perfect. So all of this is kind of wrapped into this thing of like, we have a new branch of government called Space Force. How will we ever begin to justify the amount of money that we want to send up into Space Force? Well, a good way to do that when you have threats on the ground that it's hard to kind of like justify, well, Russia, we need Space Force to combat Russia, or we need Space Force to combat China. That can be kind of a tough sell. But if you say, hey, aliens, well, yeah, billions, please. As weird as that is, on the other hand, though, having been someone who's witnessed unexplainable phenomena in the sky and then, had a very bizarre and strange experience at Skinwalker Ranch and things like that, there is stuff out there that you can't explain right now, that we don't know what it is. Part of another instinct I had from that is, I'm happy that the government's looking into it. I'm happy that they're gonna, if they're gonna take it seriously and really try to break down what's man-made and what's not man-made. The thing that worries me about that is, why does it always have to be military? Why would this fall under a military thing or an intelligence community thing? Intelligence maybe, but ultimately, like, in my mind, it's like, why do we immediately assume that if it is something that we can't explain, interdimensional or extraterrestrial, as wild as it sounds, why do we have to meet it with weapons?
Yeah.
Why do immediately have to codify it as something that's a potential threat? We don't know that until they physically harm somebody legitimately. Like, we see a Tic Tac or whatever it is, like, come on and, gack some people like Nope, like in the film Nope or something of that nature. Why do we immediately assume it's a threat?
Yeah.
That frightens me.
I think that, just to quickly give my perspective on that, it's because we are humans and we kill and slaughter everything that we can dominate. So we probably expect that anything that can find us will try and exploit or dominate us as well. But one thing, actually, we were chatting the other day, Tyrel, and you said something that made me think differently about aliens. And I wanted to get your perspective on this. Is we were talking about how typically the way that they would keep the alien research a secret is if it's all so compartmentalized and then privatized, so that they never have to like reveal that information. And I'm wondering if they would just, keep playing along, and something that they can't explain and something that they don't know about. Oh, well, that one's not man-made, but it could just be man-made from like this, deep festering kind of, layer in the, bowels of the, offshoots of the intelligence agency, where, it's crazy because once and obviously this, Tyrel, like that, there was like 10 or 15 years ago, there was this whole action from Congress to try and like get the taxes in line and like, get a list of everything that the military had and all the money that they spent. And the top military brass was just like, are you fucking kidding me? We're never fucking doing this. There's no way we could do it. We don't know where the fuck all this shit is. We don't know how much fucking shit we have. We just know we need more. God damn it, right now. And then they gave them like 10 years. And when they went to look at it, they were like, oh, hi, top brass at the military. What do you have? They were like, yeah, we've got fuck all. Give us another $100 billion. You know what I mean? Like, that's exactly what they did. And the Congress was just like, okay, you have fuck all. Here's another bunch of money. Like, it's insane. So just like you said, the reason that I don't trust our intelligence agency as far as I can fucking throw them. And they are, an obscure entity that can't be held. So you can't throw them at all. You know what I mean? There's no fucking trust that you could possibly have for these people, so that these are the guys that are going to be the arbiters of, whether or not aliens are here. And it's like, on the flip side, it's like, it is my deeply held belief that if we ever are, to interact with aliens, that they would most likely crush us. I read a really compelling essay about that from Stephen Hawking. He was like, we have no reason to ever believe they would just not eviscerate us immediately. That's what we would do to them. 100% bet your life on it. But anyway,
Well, it's hard to judge those things because, again, we're talking about, if we're talking about something that's traveling interdimensionally or through the universe, I mean, we wouldn't even begin to, I don't think, comprehend, what that would be, or what its morals would be, or what its how it views things. I mean, could also make the assumption too that if something's that advanced in technology beyond us, or whatever it might be, then we can't immediately put human traits onto it. We can't immediately say, oh, well, it could come and destroy us in a blink of an eye. Well, it might not. It might realize how precious life is, from traveling the universe and through that vacuum, or even interdimensionally. It might even understand like life is a very precious, delicate thing that you don't want to extinguish, that you don't want to see vaporized, or whatever, metaphor, whatever adverb or whatever you want to use with that. But, to me, it's one of those things where I find it very interesting that the last big outburst of like UFO phenomenon, at least culturally, was around the time of the creation of the atom bomb, and right around the advent of nuclear power, where we created something that could truly destroy life on Earth as we know it if wielded wrongly. And then you suddenly saw this uptick of extraterrestrial sightings and phenomenons and strange things in the sky. You've had reports that you saw UFOs and things like that buzzing, nuclear weapon sites and things like that. I think it was in Europe, in the UK, there was a great report on that. And now when human beings are faced with a truly do or die crisis like climate change and things like that, and we're also playing with technologies that we don't fully understand again. It doesn't surprise me that we're seeing that, whether you want to say it's legitimately, out of Earth or out of dimensional visitors like checking in on us, or it's human paranoia buried deep down in our subconscious because we know things are not good. It's a very dangerous time to be living if we don't get a wrangle on how we're destroying our natural environment or how we potentially could destroy ourselves. Either one of those could hold water and be an answer for these kind of things. Again, I know that I saw something when I was working on conspiracy theory. I know I saw something at Skinwalker Ranch that I can't explain, and I never probably will be able to explain. At least I would love to, but I don't know if in my lifetime we'll ever get to that point. And also to talk about, Zach, what you mentioned and what I was talking about with you is I have contacts within the military industrial complex. Sadly, they're good people, but who and also have come out and told me that how things are kept top secret. Like, let's say if you have a president that wants to come in and say, hey, I'm going to open the book on all alien stuff that we got, and declassify, because a president can decide what's top secret and what's not top secret. If the president wanted to do that, where they've shifted those studies now, I think it was Bob Lazar even was talking about it, and Corbell, where they've shifted those studies now is they've privatized them. So like a president can't tell Lockheed Martin or Raytheon, because they're a private company, to give up what they know. They that's a private business. They own the rights to it now. That's their thing. And so you have to get through so many different levels of security that I don't even know if we could have a president to this day that could step in and say, all right, I'm going to declassify everything that we know about aliens. You'd need a president and Congress at the same time, along with massive amount of public pressure to declassify that. And the thing I'll say is this: the excuse that, other countries might have technology that we don't understand yet. Well, what country would that be at this point?
Right.
I mean, the only one you could think of would be China. Russia's doesn't nearly have as we've seen with how they've got their with how little success they've had in Ukraine. They don't have the technology to pull something like that off. So that leaves just one country, China.
Right.
That would have the money and scientific wherewithal to do something like that. And if you take what you've seen from the Tic Tac and what we've learned over these last few years on UFOs or UABs or whatever they're calling them now, it's hard for me to believe that another country could develop technology like that and have us be so blind to the fact that it exists. Maybe China could, I don't know, but it just seems pretty rare at this point.
No, I agree with that.
Because we're such an interconnected world at this point that it would be hard for a company to keep a secret like that.
Yeah. I have a couple things to say. First, on the point of it's all just to expand the Space Force budget. To an extent, I can understand and agree with that. Also, I don't think that they need an excuse to expand the military budget. Like we were talking about, they just spent another $3 billion to Ukraine. It's not like there was any debate about that. It's not like they needed the public's permission. In the same way, they definitely don't need the public's permission to expand the Space Force budget, let alone by burying some line deep in a report. It's not like the MIC came out here and said, confirmed aliens are not of this world or UFOs are not. No, this is like some random line that's buried deep in a fiscal report. I don't think I don't think they included that line just to sow propaganda for the, budget, although that might be a convenient, consequence regardless. Secondly, it's true that they might be using aliens to justify the Space Force, but they also use Russia to justify the military budget in general. That doesn't mean Russia doesn't exist. Russia does exist, much like most likely aliens exist. I think it's hard to deny that at this point, at least in my opinion, maybe going a little bit too conspiratorial there, but I just think given the vastness of the universe and potentially the other dimensions which surround us, I think it's pretty laughable to assume that there's not anyone else out there. And thirdly, Zach, you said that, we would just kill any aliens we found and vice versa. I actually disagree with that too. I think if we found intelligent life or non-intelligent life on Mars, for example, we would study it. I don't think if we found a, bunch of like extraterrestrial gorillas or whatever running around on Mars, our first instinct would just be to fucking vaporize them all. Like, we definitely study them. We might take some back to Earth to look at, or abduct them, so to speak. But I don't think we would just slaughter the entire race of aliens we found if we were to find them on a planet that we could travel to. So I think that's a little bit of a cliche to say, but all that's to say, it's just an interesting phenomena. It's obviously these conversations are cyclical. I feel like it always goes back to is this just justification for the military budget? Is it real? What's real? So it's definitely interesting.
Yeah, my one pushback that I would make really quickly is just to say that I think that if they were innocuous and we were able to just study them, totally fair. If they show up in a spaceship that looks at all threatening and we cannot, enslave them for our research, then we 100% destroy them. If it is at all a threat to the United States, I think that we're either able to be so much smarter than them, in which case I don't know how they found us then, and we put them in a zoo and we watch them like animals, like gorillas, like you said. But if they are smart enough to get here and they find us first, I don't know if we're going to be able to just enslave them and study them. I think that then we turn it into like, this is war. And
I mean, if they just show up like in a big spaceship, you think we'd immediately start trying to go to war with them?
Yep. 100%.
I mean, I think that's a big possibility, although I also think that potentially cooler heads would prevail and be like, yo, if we start shooting missiles at these fuckers, we're literally going to have our entire planet vaporized. Like, who would be dumb enough to start shooting missiles at a species of aliens which clearly has very much more sophisticated technology? Because to accomplish interstellar or interdimensional travel means that they have infinitely more sophisticated scientific advancements than we do. So to shoot a missile at that would just be suicidal.
I think that's true, but maybe also the reality. But sorry, Ty.
Oh no, I was just going to say, like, I think you guys are both making great points, but I think at the end of the day, when you're talking about something as significant as this and what it potentially could be, I think that we kind of have to throw all expectations of what we would do and what they would do out the window, because you're talking about having to rewrite the entire concept of what our reality is. And that's, to me, the fun aspect of it. And that's why you have these conversations. And that's why, like I said, I don't mind seeing a little bit of money spent out of my tax dollars digging into, what's real and what's not real and things like that. Because if that means that it brings us one step closer to potentially either proving that we're not alone in this universe, in that kind of sense, great. However, if you're going to kind of use it as an excuse to continue militarizing, and, just to push back on you, Gavin, a little bit, I get what you're saying, like they don't need an excuse, but if you look at, look, they built a great excuse in the run up to how we were going to help Ukraine. That dominated the airwaves. They could have just given money to Ukraine without having to build up public sentiment if they wanted to, but they didn't. They had to do, that's what they know. And that's how they operate at this point. Even if it makes no logical sense that they could just do it and move forward with it without even asking permission. They really don't have to, tragically. But there's still that kind of intrinsic thing that everything that they want to do, they want to justify and manipulate.
But the war in Ukraine is actually happening. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
Like
yeah.
did that.
Completely. Yeah, no, I understand. But we still had to whip up public opinion to be on our side of that, right? Like, they still had to kind of do a lot of propaganda, whether for good or bad, to kind of get national consensus to say, yeah, let's send some more, let's help out those people. So I don't know, man. It's such a weird territory to be in that I'm just happy that we're fucking talking about it.
I hope that one day we get to settle this fucking thing, right? And if
I know, right?
We'll be like, well, Gavin, I guess you were right. The cooler heads prevail.
I would love to be 7 years old looking at y'all going like, holy shit, we actually, it's real. Like,